Everybody likes The Witcher. Specifically, they like The Witcher 3 because this is a magnificent masterpiece of a game that I've been really digging into. But I wanted to see how The Witcher came to be. Nobody praises The Witcher 1 in quite the same way as they praise The Witcher 3. Is it a good game? Is it a bad game? I don't know. Let's find out. The fantasy genre has its common tropes and themes that make it immediately recognizable. Elves, dwarves, forests, swords, large battles. In the West, the genre has found its archetype in the Lord of the Rings series, and today Game of Thrones is a massively popular franchise. However, in 1992, 1 year after the fall of the Iron Curtain, Andrzej Sapkowski gave birth to an Eastern European cult classic, the Witcher series. I've been enjoying the books lately. Sapkowski's prose has created a massive world, one that I want to visit almost daily, although, to be fair, I wouldn't want to live there due to how dark and dangerous it is. After reading the second novel, I was itching to explore the world for myself. Now, most people would start with the third game of the series for obvious reasons. I'm playing it now, and it is the definitive way to explore and exist in the Witcher universe. I'll certainly be taking a closer look at it one day when I've really been able to sink my teeth into it. But for this video, I want to take a look at the first Witcher game, the piece of media that really introduced Geralt of Rivia to the West. Geralt is a Witcher, a superhuman monster slayer. Witchers are taken from birth, trained to be the most agile and deadly of warriors. Then, they are given mutations, rendering them infertile, but also giving them even more heightened senses and a much longer life. Geralt himself is over a century old. Geralt has lived a long and dangerous life, which one can read in the novels, so I will not spoil them here. The CD Projekt Red knew that the West would not know this character at all, so they had to find a way to allow the Western gamer to take control of Geralt without knowing anything about the world around him. So, Geralt has lost his memory. Lore-wise, the rumor was that he had been killed in battle and then miraculously found 5 years later, wounded and without his memory. Geralt is taken back to Kaer Morhen, the Witcher's headquarters, to recover. After his rest, Kaer Morhen is attacked by the Professor and a Zerrikanian mage, who seek the Witcher's mutagenic formulae. The Witchers are unable to stop them, so they scour the four corners of the earth to find the perpetrators. You are controlling the main character, so you know that you're going to be the one who finds them. Geralt makes his way to the outskirts of Vizima, a charming, if haunting, little village just outside the city walls. While he's there, he runs into a magical child named Alvin, who appears to be hunted by a magical ghost dog. While exploring the outskirts, making sure that Alvin is taken care of, and searching for clues as to who the hell just destroyed his home, Geralt happens upon a mysterious organization known as the Salamandra. Everyone in the village is afraid of them and won't talk to Geralt about them until he earns their trust by doing special favors. Geralt bandies back and forth, slaying monsters, rescuing damsels, and negotiating with elven freedom fighters. Eventually, Geralt manages to slay the ghost dog and save the village, though, at least in my playthrough, absolutely nobody is happy with how he goes about it. From there, Geralt enters Vizima. He is immediately imprisoned and is forced to fight a basilisk in order to earn his freedom. While in the sewers, Geralt meets Siegfried, a knight of the Order of the Flaming Rose. Think this universe's version of the militant orders of the Catholic Church, who also wants to slay the basilisk. Geralt and Siegfried work together, at least how I played, to take it down. To avoid major story spoilers, I'm being intentionally brief with the plot summary. Geralt explores the city of Vizima in his quest to find the leader of Salamandra. On his quest, he runs into old friends like Dandelion the Bard and Zoltan the Dwarf, and reveals a vast political conspiracy that extends to the highest ranks of society. This game has two plot threads, fighting and destroying Salamandra, and taking care of Alvin. By the end of the game, the two plots weave together in an unexpected way, only fully being revealed in the final moments of the story. I walked away reflecting on the choices I had made throughout the adventure, and was satisfied that the story ended as it should. This is a good, self-contained story, but it also has implications for the story in The Witcher 3. Now, with this plot summary out of the way, I want to get more in depth into the gameplay. The gameplay can be divided into two parts: fighting and exploring. You will be spending most of your time exploring, and by exploring I mean running back and forth in a decent-sized location, talking to NPCs, and following up on new leads and quest chains that have been revealed to you as you continue through the story. This focus on zigzagging across the map is an interesting feature of the game, and I do call it a feature that I'm mixed on in how I think about it and how I respond to it. Is the game full on backtracking? No doubt, you're constantly going back and forth between locations you've been to 1,000 times in the past hour. There is no fast travel. There are no mounts. There is no possible way of getting anywhere other than holding down the W key and running there. However, especially in the city of Vizima, this allows the player to feel truly immersed. In modern RPGs, especially in The Witcher 3, my eye is mostly on the minimap. The worlds are large, they're lush, but you don't truly get to know the worlds. The human mind just isn't built to process location information of that scale in that amount of time. Take The Witcher 3, you have this tremendously huge world to explore, multiple cities, multiple miles of land to walk around and explore. You might be spending anywhere from 40 to 60 hours exploring the location. Fine, that's a lot of time in a video game, but for the mind to truly know the location, you gotta be spending weeks there, paying attention to every single detail. When you move into a new location in real life, you don't just learn the location within a couple of hours of living there. It takes time for your mind to map out all of the landmarks and all of the features. Same with video games. But it's different in The Witcher 1, because the areas are contained, with recognizable landmarks and routes to take. It soon came to be that I knew where every single location was, where the Hairy Bear Inn was, where the loggers lived, where Triss Merigold's house was. All of these locations I could run to without even opening my map, because I felt like I lived there. The questing system also contributes to this feature. Especially in the second act, when you're running around Vizima looking for any leads in Salamandra, you will often feel lost. You are in a big city, surrounded by strangers with few friends and few pieces of information. Yet, like Geralt himself must feel, you hang on to the fact that you are never completely without any leads. You always just have one more thing you can go check out before you throw your hands up and go look up a guide. Just when you think you've exhausted all of your leads, something will happen to give you 1 or 2 more threads to go check out, until you found yourself at the end of the act, figuring out who the leader of Salamandra is. The marriage between player and avatar, both in exploration and in questing, allows the game to immerse the player in a way that modern games often do not. When playing The Witcher, you don't feel like you're playing a game. You feel like you're living in an adventure. At least, until the combat is brought into the equation. Now, I will start off by saying that the system isn't horrible. In fact, I can see how the developers were trying to achieve the same marriage between player and avatar as they did with the exploration. Witchers are so specially trained that the maneuvers they perform are instinctual. They don't have to think about them. They simply choose how to react, and then they execute their combat tactics. In that sense, the combat mirrors the Witcher's combat abilities perfectly. You look at an enemy, recognize what weapon, either silver or steel, you'll need, and what Witcher style will be most effective. Then, you click on the enemy to execute the attack. You fall into a rhythm as you chain attacks together, feeling the flow of combat more than simply button mashing. Button mashing will simply not work. You have to have a rhythmic feel for how the combat is flowing. When the combat works, you feel like a Witcher. But that's when it works. The combat is marred by a few flaws that hinder its success. The first is the lack of a dedicated dodge or block mechanic. Yes, technically, you can dodge roll, but this is so unresponsive it basically doesn't exist in the game at all. When a group of enemies gang up on you, it can be difficult to maneuver into a more advantageous position because you are hemmed in on all sides. Similarly, if you are fighting an enemy that has the possibility of inflicting pain, something which stuns Geralt for a short time, it's up to God's will if you can get through the encounter later on. You can't dodge it, you can't block it, all you can do is hope that you kill the enemy before he kills you. There are things you can do to stack the deck in your favor: prepare potions, put oil on your blade, use your signs. But it never comes down to skill, it comes down to luck. Sometimes, when you go to click, Geralt won't even register the attack at all, but just stand there, waving his sword around, getting whacked by surrounding enemies. This has caused me to take way more damage than necessary, and breaks the immersion. Because of these flaws, combat never feels rewarding. It feels good to effortlessly destroy your enemies, but that's more for the rush of a feeling of power, or just being happy knowing that the combat mechanics are still working. When you finish a difficult encounter, the only feelings you experience are that of frustration or relief. Frustration that the combat system is fighting against your best efforts, and relief that you somehow made it through the encounter. You certainly do not feel a sense of pride or accomplishment. Finally, health simply takes too long to recover. After a long fight, it's not uncommon to be at half health or less. Now, there are 3 ways to recover health: to meditate, take a consumable, or wait. Meditation can only be done where there is a campfire, but immediately recovers all of your health, and this is the best way to heal. Consumables vary in effectiveness. Potions can be quite effective, either giving you an amount of vitality immediately or speeding up your recovery rate tremendously. Food and drink, on the other hand, feel painfully slow. They are faster than not eating, but it seems to get Geralt back to full health, he has to have a full feast, complete with a main course, side dishes, juice to wash it all down, and a dessert for good measure. On top of that, food only speeds up the rate at which you recover vitality. It does not immediately heal you. The speed at which you recover health without food makes snails look like they are race car drivers, and by the time you've finished stuffing Geralt with the equivalent of a Thanksgiving meal, that rate has only increased marginally. Far too often, especially in the late game, I found myself on my phone or getting up to do something while I simply waited for my health to recover, so I could keep playing the game. That is not fun. Potions alleviate the problem, but with potions you are both limited by the level of toxicity Geralt is able to handle, and by the alchemical ingredients you have to brew the potion. In addition, potions can only be brewed during meditation, so if you run out of potions and you can't meditate, you're out of luck. To put it simply, the rate at which health recovers needlessly slows down the game, especially at the end game, where things take on new urgency. As the game progresses, you have this incessant need to push forward, to destroy Salamandra, to continue on your quest to save Alvin, and yet after a fight, you sit there, and you wait for that little bar to tick up. For at the end of the game, when urgency is at an all-time high, and the action is moving fast, your character is moving slow, because of the inherent limitations of the game system. Luckily, however, CD Projekt Red has fixed this in later Witcher titles. Setting aside the combat system and exploring, Geralt spends a lot of time in dialogue. Voice acting is not amazing, but it's not noticeably terrible either. What's notable about the dialogue is the impact that choice actually has. Unlike a game such as Mass Effect, where the player is only offered a few significant choices throughout the game which give an immediate impact, with almost no effect later on in the story, choices in this game matter throughout the whole narrative, often in ways that the player would be unable to guess. For example, early on in the game, you are given a choice to allow the non-human freedom fighters, the Scoia'tael, to steal goods from a man you're doing a quest for. If you don't let them, as I did not, then a character you meet later on is arrested. Well, why? Without those supplies, that band of Scoia'tael are unable to defend themselves when attacked, and the character in question's nephew was in that band, which led to his arrest, because the authorities suspected him due to the family ties with the Scoia'tael. To give another example, if you fight the basilisk in the sewers with Siegfried as comrades, then he will help you get to the docks outside of Vizima, vouching for you before the city guard. If you don't fight alongside him, then in order to get out of the city, you will need an item from the chief of police, which takes a longer time to get. Choices have a significant impact both on the narrative and on gameplay. What Geralt does matters, which causes the player to weigh every choice they make in a conversation, even if it feels insignificant. The game will even let you know when you come to a point where the choice you've made has impacted the game, as if telling you, remember way back when? Yeah, this is why. Play again, and see what else you can do. Musically, the game's decent. The only track that still plays in my head is the one that plays during Dice Poker, which is a very catchy tune. When I was playing the game and paying attention to the music for this review, I was in the swamp, which has almost no music, so I was ready to denounce the soundtrack in its entirety. But in fact, the lack of music in the swamp adds to the feeling of dereliction and distance from society that the environment is trying to create. When the player is in Vizima, the big city, the score has a medieval, bardic feel, as if one were playing in a Renaissance festival. This is especially true in the inns. Now, CD Projekt Red doesn't provide us with the best soundtrack by any means, but what is there serves to establish the tone of each location to a good degree. So, would I recommend people play this game? Going by the gameplay alone, it's a toss-up. The combat is weird enough and buggy enough to drive some people away, and modern gamers might not appreciate the constant back and forth that makes up the majority of the game. That being said, this game is a good vehicle to reflect on how small, explorable areas might be even more immersive than the large open worlds of today's games. Narratively, this is one of the few games that makes the player feel like their choices actually matter, and it does a good job at recreating the world of The Witcher that fans of the series will feel at home. Personally, I am glad that I played it, especially seeing the significance of the plot and some of the characters introduced in this game to the plot of The Witcher 3, but I don't think that I'll revisit it anytime soon. The game lasted, for me, about 25 hours, a reasonable length for a game of this quality. Something that I really want to do with this channel is to step back and look through games through a tradition. So for example, we're playing through the Witcher series right now. I've played the Witcher 1 game. Someday I might come back and play the Witcher 2 and then the Witcher 3 to see how the series advances throughout time. I want to do the same thing now with the Mario series in a much more marathon-esque way. I've recently come into the Super Mario All-Stars collection. It's not quite original. Obviously, these are remakes of the original games, but it gives the US gamer access to the lost levels, and it has an amazing thing I call a save feature. So for the next couple of videos, we're going to be taking a look at the beginnings of the Mario series, specifically his start on the NES days. If you enjoyed this video or want to see what's coming out later, please feel free to subscribe and hit the bell notification. I'd love to hear your comments either on The Witcher or on gaming in general. Please leave that in the comment section down below. And thank you so much for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic night.